Hi everyone, today we are going to learn how to make these gorgeous little mini lemon sablee Bretons. A super crumbly shortbread base topped with a delicious lemon cremous, some fresh oranges, and I've put some baby basil on there. But yeah, let's get started. So we're going to start with making our sablee Breton, or Breton shortbread. Which is a biscuit from Brittany in France, and it's super crumbly and super buttery, so which is why we're baking it in the cupcake tin to hold its shape. Sometimes if you bake it, like just cut it out and bake it, it can spread everywhere because there's so much butter in it. So we're going to put 2 egg yolks in with our sugar. And whisk that together. It's a bit lumpy, but don't worry. This egg yolks is super orange today. Just kind of get that off your whisk, and then you can do it in a stand mixer also. Alright, and then we have our butter. This is in French, they call it beurre pommade. And basically it means kind of pomade is like cream or ointment. So it's butter, I like to think of it as thick as mayonnaise. So basically you soften it in the microwave and just keep stirring it, or I did it over a pot of simmering water until it's just super soft like that. You can otherwise just leave it out until it's soft. Basically just super soft butter, but not quite melted. I'm gonna whisk that in. Until it's nice and smooth. And then I have my flour with my baking powder. It's got quite a lot of baking powder in there, so just mix it around, tip it in, use your spatula to mix it in. I really love using this as a tart base because it's really easy to make, and it always comes out really nicely. It's always uniform because of the way you bake it, and yeah, I just love the texture of it, and it's a bit more sturdy than a normal tart shell, so you can kind of put quite a lot on it. So just keep mixing it. It's quite a soft dough. If you want, you can get your hands in there, which I'll do in a second. I don't know if I said this already, but you can do this in a stand mixer using a whisk for the first bit and then using a pedal attachment for this bit. I'm going to bring it together until all that flour is mixed in. And then you have a super soft sticky dough, and I'm going to wrap that up and put that in the fridge for at least a few hours, but preferably overnight. For our lemon cremous, I'm going to take 1 sheet of gelatine and put it in a bowl of cold water and just press it in there. You want that to be the first thing you do when you start the cremous, so it has time to soak. Then in here I have lemon juice and sugar. Just going to put it on a medium heat and add in 2 eggs. And whisk them together. And we're going to whisk this until it boils. So I forgot to say, in here is also our sugar and lemon juice, which you would have got in 1 container. And we're gonna, keep whisking. Make sure you're pressing down. And then you have a super soft, sticky dough. And I'm going to wrap that up and put that in the fridge for at least a few hours, but preferably overnight. We're gonna keep whisking, make sure you're pressing down on the base of the pot, so you're actually scraping it with the whisk, and that stops it from catching and burning. And make sure you're going around all the edges and the center, really getting every bit of it. These inductions work quite quickly, so at home if you've got gas it may take a bit longer. Cremeux is basically a curd, but with the addition of gelatin and quite a lot of butter. It makes it super, super creamy and thick and luxurious, and this is my most used recipe without a doubt. I use it with passion fruit, with orange and lemon, with lime, with grapefruit. So you want it to boil fully, like proper boil like that. And then you can turn the heat off. Add in your gelatin, which should be nice and soft. And now we're going to leave this for 10 minutes off the heat, but in the pot. So you're going to set a timer for 10 minutes. And the reason we're doing that is because we want... Sorry, I've got a sneeze coming. Alright. Yeah, okay, we're good. Sorry. We want it to cool down before we add the butter. If you've made this in a class with me before, normally we just put the butter in straight away and blend it. For this particular recipe, because we want the cremeux to be thick and pipeable, we need the mixture to be around 40 degrees when we add in the butter. So just leaving it for 10 minutes will allow it to cool down, and that way when you add the butter in and it's hot like this, the butter melts and it changes the structure. Whereas if we add in the butter later, once it's a bit cooler, we'll have the thicker end product that's a bit more pipeable. Also, you'll see, I'm just trying to see if you can see on there, let me get a spatula to show you. These little speckly bits of egg white and egg yolk. Egg white and egg yolk cook at different temperatures. Egg white cooks faster or cooks at a slightly lower temperature than egg yolk, which is why they separate out. Normally in a mixture like this, or if you've made pastry cream for example, you add corn flour in there to bind it together and stop them separating out. In this, we just have the eggs with the other stuff. There's nothing to bind it, which is why it separates. It doesn't mean you've scrambled it. When we blend it with the stick blender, it will re-emulsify everything together. Yeah, alright. See you in 10 minutes. Bye. So, it's been 10 minutes. As you can see, it's kind of started to thicken up and set a little bit. I've got my butter, which I'm going to kind of mix around. Should have probably cut a bit smaller, but that's okay. And then I'm just going to go drop everything on the floor and go in with my stick blender. Alright, so as you can see, it's lightened up a lot. It's beautiful and smooth and creamy. If you feel like your butter looks like it's a bit split in the mixture, that just means your mix might have gone a bit cold, and you can warm it up very gently and then continue to blend it. So then I'm going to pour it into a container. Obviously chose the smallest one I possibly could find for this amount, but it fits. Just get it all in there. And then you're going to cover it with cling film directly on the surface to stop it from forming a skin, and let it rest for at least a few hours, but again preferably overnight. Alright, see you in the morning. My dough has been in the fridge overnight now, my Sable Breton dough. So I'm going to unwrap it, and it's quite firm, so what I like to do is push down with my hands. It'll be quite crumbly, just to soften it slightly. Kind of do two halves at a time and then squish it together. Okay, so now it's a little bit more pliable. I'm going to take some flour and roll it out to about 1 centimetre thick. Just move it around to make sure it's not sticking to anything. By anything, I guess I just mean the bench. Right, a touch thinner. Okay, we're good. So then I've got these cutters. I'm going to use a slightly smaller one, which fits inside my muffin tin like that, but you could use a slightly bigger one. You can also use a glass if you want, or I'll show you an alternative in a minute. So you can see that's pretty thick. So I'm going to cut out, you have enough filling for 10 at least, but I'm just going to cut all out. And then you can freeze the dough, or you can just bake it up as cookies because it is really nice. Then if you want to re-roll it, just do the same thing, squish it up together. And I'm just going to pop it straight in the base of the muffin tins. Oh, that was only 9. Good thing I was counting. Oops. Alright, so I'll roll a few more. I'll also show you, if you don't have a cutter that fits, you can just cut it with a knife and make a rough circle, or you can take a little ball of the dough, roll it up, and then flatten it out. That's probably a bit small. I could have gone a bit thicker. And it's pretty much, it's going to melt in the oven anyway. Because, as I've said before, there's so much butter in the dough that it kind of loses its shape and melts out, which is why we're baking it in the muffin tins. I rolled that a bit thin. So you'll have a little bit left over, like I said, that you can bake up or you can freeze. And if you want, you can make this in a cake tin instead and make one big one. So I'm going to stick those in the oven for 10 minutes to start, and then I'll show you what they look like. My Sable Breton are done now. They were in the oven for 10 minutes. They're just lightly golden brown. They're still a bit soft. If you bake them for too long, they do get quite crunchy. And I'm just going to tip them out like that. If you leave them in there for too long, they can start to stick. Going to turn them upside down to finish cooling, or the right way around, sorry. And so as you can see, what happens is they rise up and then sink down, so they've got this nice little divot. So we're putting our lemon cremeux in there, but I love putting anything in. A bit of mascarpone cream and some fresh fruit like peaches or strawberries or whatever, some poached rhubarb or rhubarb compote. Really super creative. You can even put custard in there. It's just a really nice, quite easy tart base, and these will keep in an airtight container for a couple of weeks. So I'm going to let these cool down for a few minutes, and then we will carry on. Now that these have cooled down a little bit, I'm going to show you how to do the piping. So you've got a piping bag in your kit. And I have my lemon cremeux nice and firmly set. I'm going to pop that in the piping bag. Oh gosh, and squash everything at the same time. So what I'm going to do is just gently give it a light squeeze, that's all, no more than that. You don't want to melt it, but just to even out the texture a little bit. Then on your piping bag, you'll see you've got a seam at the top. What you want to do is cut an angle so the seam is at the shortest bit and the each base is at. I always struggle to explain this, sorry. Basically, you cut it on an angle like that. You want the seam at the top of the angle, and that's going to give you a nice shape. Just checking if I'm happy with the size. Yep, that's good. So, I'm going to take one of these. You can do it on the bench. I'm just going to hold it up close so you can see it. And you're pretty much just going to squiggle. Like that. Super easy. I hold my piping bag kind of in the middle, but you can hold it further up if you want. You just want to make sure that you've got a lot of pressure on it if you hold it further up. You want to be squeezing to come out of here. Sometimes if you squeeze too far up and you've not got enough pressure, you don't really end up doing anything. So squeeze and literally just squiggle all over the place like that. It looks like a little scribble and I think it's quite cute. The tip does all the work for you. So you need to keep that seam at the top the whole time. If you do it like that, you're not going to get as defined a shape. If you want, you can just do back and forward like that as well. But I do quite like the abstractness of this shape. And it's just an even consistency the whole way through when you're doing it. So by even consistency, sorry, I should mean even pressure to get the cremeux out. And you can see how I'm just moving my bag randomly. And I actually have enough cremeux for 12. Which is great because I still have absolutely no one to give these to. My neighbours next door are vegan, so they cannot eat these. Alright, probably could have done a 13th, possibly even a 14th with my leftover cremeux. But, now you know. I don't like that as much, so I'm just going to add a bit of texture with my leftovers. Okay, now you have a beautiful orange. I've got a nice zester. This is an optional extra, but just add a little bit of orange zest. Or you could do lemon zest or lime zest for a nice bit of colour. Then I'm going to segment my orange. So, just checking you can see. You want to cut off the base and the top. Oops, try not to throw it in your beautifully decorated pastries. Whoops, and then go around the edges and take off the skin. So the easiest way is to look at it from the side and follow the line of the pith or the white stuff to get rid of it all. You don't need all of this orange. I was actually going to try to get some mandarins, but they did not have any. So orange as it is. Alright, and then, and you want to do this over a bowl to catch any juice, you're going to go in between the lines of the segments and your orange should just come out nice and beautifully. My mum used to make me this orange jelly that had orange segments like this floating in it, and it was so good. It was my favourite thing. But she hated segmenting the oranges. Oops. If you need it, you can squeeze out the juice from there. Need it, you can drink it. Or do whatever you want with it. And then, obviously, these are quite big. We don't want to put whole pieces like that on our tarts. It's a bit much. So, I'm going to cut them in half. And just cut into little slices. I mean, you don't even have to cut it in half, you can just cut it straight into the slices. And I'm just putting it on a paper towel to dry them off a little bit. And then I'm going to put 3 little slices on each tart, like that. These are very cute little desserts or little dessert canapes. Make mini ones and put them on a tray or something. Well, they are mini. But like I said, you can make bigger ones. Cook them in one of those, you know, mini cheesecake tins that you can buy at the warehouse and stuff. Or mini cake tins or mini tart, you know, in between this and a huge, big portion. Yeah, make individual ones or do a big one like I said. Use a cake tin, a springform pan, roll it out a little bit thicker, bake it a tiny bit longer, and then I have somehow managed to keep my baby basil plant barely alive. I love basil with citrus. I'm going to put a few leaves on each. They're kind of weird shaped leaves at the top. I don't know why. Probably because it's dying. I'm not good with plants, I'm just good with pastries. But yeah, really love the flavour of basil and lemon. But you can do anything. You could do mint. You could just do some little flowers. You could just do lime zest for that hint of green. You can just pick the little tiny growing basil sprouty bits from a normal basil plant. You can use edible flowers. Yeah, and again, you can do this in different flavours, especially with the cremeux. It's delicious with yuzu, with passion fruit, with grapefruit, any kind of citrus really. If you do anything not citrusy, I find that the egg flavour is quite strong, so you need the sour acidity of the citrus to cover that up really. Okay, nearly done. And then these are good for a few days and kept in the fridge in an airtight container. Oh, sorry, my shoes made a weird noise. Sounded like a fart. I did not fart in my video, I promise. Okay, nearly done. And voila, there you have it. Your little lemon sablé Breton. Enjoy!